and Independent Women's Voice President and CEO Heather Higgins is here. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Nice to see you this morning. Good morning.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, great to see you.
The luxury of heat, number one, being indoors.
It was cold yesterday.
Even though we had a fabulous time, and I've made a list of all the things that I know. I'm reading your mind that you're dying to talk about this morning.
Well,
and
I know
so
that
many.
you saw the op-ed, and we're going to talk about your op-ed in terms of this unaccountable FBI. Why it is the case that now they're complaining that there are these omissions, and yet they've been stonewalling, as you write in the op-ed this morning, they've been stonewalling Congress since August.
Yeah, and of course they went to the White House and tried to get the president to say, no, it's not going to be released. They failed. They don't like to remember this, but they actually do work for him. And I think that's what's really corrosive about this whole story, is this sense that the FBI is an authority unto itself. It is not. The president, under our Constitution, is the executive authority.
Dagan, I don't understand why Andrew McCabe is going to be sitting on these emails that they found on Anthony Weiner's laptop and think that it's okay to obstruct justice just a month before a major presidential election.
And also given the fact that his wife had received a six-figure donation or fundraising effort by Terry McAuliffe, who is the cronyist of Clinton cronies. Again, he should have stepped aside because of that. But again, the timeline is the FBI said was provided a limited opportunity to review. Well, Christopher Wray, the director, had 90 minutes with the 4-page memo on a rare Sunday visit. Monday, 2 more FBI officials reviewed the memo in a 30-minute visit. Again, that's Fox News' timeline, but we'll go into it later in the morning.
We'll talk more about this. This is a big story. I think this is going to be one of the big stories of 2018 going into the midterm elections, that and the economy, obviously. Got to get your take on that, Heather. Coming up this morning and joining the conversation, Wisconsin Congressman Sean Duffy was on that train yesterday. As well, Fox News contributor Rachel Campos Duffy. They were there with their family. Former special assistant to President Trump and former press secretary to Vice President Pence, Mark Lauder, is with us this morning. Former RNC chairman and former Mississippi Governor Haley Barbour joins us this morning. And San Francisco's 49ers president, Al Guido. You don't want to miss a moment of it. We've got a big show coming up. Let's kick it off right here with our top story, and that is a tidal wave of technology earnings. Overall, the busiest week for fourth quarter earnings so far. But today, we are set to hear from Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, all after the close tonight. This after technology giants Facebook and Microsoft reported impressive earnings yesterday. Take a look at the pre-market this morning on those stocks. Facebook beat on both profit and revenue for the fourth quarter. The social networking giant reported earnings of $2.21 a share, revenue of nearly $13 billion. And then there's Microsoft, also beat expectations last night, both on earnings and revenue. As you can see there, pretty good numbers. Joining us now to weigh in is the founder and president of Endpoint Technologies Associates, Roger Kay, along with CFRA investment strategist Lindsay Bell. Good to see you both. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Morning, Maria.
So, Roger, Facebook beat estimates in the fourth quarter, but the company is also saying that users were spending less time on the network. Concern for you?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've been spending time on Facebook yourself, Maria, but it's actually, in some ways, a little less interesting than it used to be. In other words, you're hearing mostly only from your friends now rather than from, say, random politicians. So you don't get to read controversial things that inflame you. Instead, you're just getting somebody's, vacation photos or something. And I think people are finding it a little less interesting than it used to be.
This stuff moves so fast, and I know that it's an older audience on Facebook than, say, an Instagram. I mean, this was so 5 minutes ago, Facebook. I mean, come on, guys.
Right.
You know what I would add to that, though? On the Facebook, users, the daily users went down for the first time ever. It was a 700,000 decrease, which, the CFO was like, look, it's not that bad. This isn't a concerning trend. It should improve over time. But the big thing is that ad sales increased. The average price of ads was up 41%. So that's a really impressive number. So offsetting the lower number of eyeballs.
So with Facebook shares.
Also, they have a very high. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, Roger. Facebook
mobile
shares fell
Sorry.
in the post market yesterday, but you see them gaining here because people are realizing this was telegraphed by CEO Mark Zuckerberg. The changes that he plans to make, they are worried about the negative effects that too much time on Facebook is having, depending on the content. Right, yeah. And the whole idea is users are more likely to stick around for ads if they like what they're seeing. And you saw revenue per user was actually up 26% in the recent quarter. That's $6 more per user in revenue that Facebook was able to extract. So it might be an old social media platform, but it's still got nearly 1.5 billion users globally.
Yeah.
And so he's worried about making sure that those users stick around and getting the most amount of revenue out of them.
Right. I mean, this is the number 2.
I think the problem with that, to
largest
some degree,
ad platform after Google. So
right.
Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah,
Roger.
I mean,
sorry about that.
Well,
Got a
you know,
delay here.
they've managed to move a high proportion of their advertising onto the mobile platform, so that's good. Also, I think it's worth looking at the history of social networks. Facebook is the latest incarnation, and it's certainly the largest ever. But social networks have come and gone over time. You know, they become popular, they're interesting, and then they kind of get polluted, and then people abandon them. And that's really been the history of things like The Well in California and AOL later on and so on. So it's not inevitable that Facebook take over the world. It seems like that right now, but I think there are people looking at the longer term. And if Zuckerberg does the right thing in some sense for the network, it will be the wrong thing for investors. Because if you make it a sort of nicer, friendlier place, then it may not be as much clickbait as it used to be, and therefore generate less ad revenue.
Yeah,
so
you
I
know,
think there's a trade-off there.
they also have unrecognized revenue to come if they wanted. They've got WhatsApp, 1 billion people there that they're not monetizing. They've got Facebook Messenger, another 1 billion people there that they're not monetizing. I'm just saying, as an overall company, there's a runway here, I think. James.
Well, I'm just curious to the extent, I'm not sure if I'm reading this correctly, but is Zuckerberg basically accepting a business hit to get political heat off him? Is that what these changes are about?
yeah, that's a good way to point. That's a good thing to point to. I think that it is something that he is choosing the user over his shareholders, right? And I think that is going to take a little bit of political heat off of him because the politicians are worried about how this is going to impact consumers across the country.
And also, he doesn't want to be seen as a gatekeeper, right? He doesn't want people to treat Silicon Valley the way they treat other media outlets, I think.
Because they're beginning to look at them
But
that
it's
way.
also-
Because of the
And
power
they-
that these companies are.
Remember, they rolled out Facebook Live, and the way that the tech industry kind of introduces new products, they don't really think about the effects until later. And with Facebook Live, you literally had people committing murders and suicide on Facebook Live, and then they were scrambling to add more employees to vet this content and to monitor the videos on the platform.
Don't they also have a bit of a conflict in that in order to sell their ad revenues, they really are selling the fact that they know so much about their individual users and they can let you target them. And yet when the individual users find out the degree to which they're being monitored and tracked and et cetera, that is a disincentive to use their product. So I would think that they're in a bit of a bind between users and ad revenue on that one too. But I don't know if you're seeing a reflection of that.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry. I think that the earnings themselves basically say that Facebook wasn't inhibited by political activity, even though all these bad things happened, and apparently on their platform, on their watch. In the end, the numbers speak for themselves. So they weren't harmed by the political controversy of the last year.
Real quick on Apple. Roger, would you buy Apple ahead of the numbers? I mean, we know that they are reporting after the bell, and they said that the iPhone 10 is basically going to cause production cuts. The Journal reporting that this week, that they're going to cut production on the iPhone 10 basically in half.
Yeah, well, okay, so about that, I think that Apple is probably more indifferent to product mix than you might imagine, because the older phones have much lower cost structures than, for example, the iPhone 10. So that offers them the opportunity to make pretty much, I don't know if it's exactly the same money, but similar money on all the models. So they're mostly concerned with total units, not so much mix, I would say.
Yeah. Real quick, which of these companies, if any, would you buy here?
Well, Maria, you know me. I mean, if I come in and buy, it probably means it's at the top right now. So, I wouldn't listen to me about any of that.
So you're.
I would say Apple's a good value.
Well,
We want to know what you want to buy so we know what to short.
Yeah, exactly. The stock is up so much, but it's still not expensive, right?
Right. No, and then
What's it trading at?
it's come down going into these reports. So I think it's a really good.
Yeah.
They talk the numbers down. So this is like.
Roger, hold on. Give me your assessment of earnings right here for the fourth quarter. What are we looking at? S&P 500 growth.
S&P 500 growth, we're at 12.3%.
For the quarter?
For the quarter so far. That's about 170 basis points better than we were at the start of the season. It's going to go up. We've only got 40% of the index reported so far. We're going to get some big names today.
2018, what, 23%?
The official consensus estimate right now is at about 17%. We think it gets up to 20%. It's going to keep moving higher.
All right, we'll leave it there. Roger Kay, Lindsay Bell, great.